just know me, yeah, I know.
Any kids with us this morning, come on up for our children's message. And the scattering begins. Yeah, just sitting down feels good, doesn't it? You have a dime? You have 10 cents? That's awesome. Do you guys play sports?
Yes.
Do you guys play sports? Yeah, I used to play sports more often than I do now. But when I was little, a little older than you, but not much, we used to all go to the park. We didn't have, our parents weren't there and there weren't any refs. It was just us kids that would play at the park. And we'd pick teams. You ever pick teams?
No.
What happens when you pick teams? Who do you want to pick first? The best. That's exactly right. And how can you tell who's the best? Who's the best? Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's the bigger ones, right? And you watch them play and you try to pick them up. But if you were just looking at them, you might just pick the bigger ones or the stronger ones or the faster, whatever it might be. We do all these kind of things. And when I was a little kid, I was a really little kid. I was the smallest in my grade. So if you were picking a team, do you think you'd have picked the littlest kid first? No, that's exactly right. That's exactly how it went. They were like, well, sure, you come too. That's the way it worked. That doesn't sound like any fun, does it? No, doesn't sound like any fun. In our story today, we hear about a king. You ever think about kings?
Yeah.
Yep. If you were going to pick a king, who would you pick? What kind of king or queen or monarch or whatever you want to call them, what would be most important to you about a king or a queen or a monarch? You know what a monarch is?
King.
King? Yeah, what? Yeah, it means they're the best at what they're doing. So who would we pick? Would we pick somebody young or older? Probably older. Would we pick somebody that was really weak or really strong? Probably pretty strong, at least in mine too, right? And so we got all these ideas about who we think is the most important or most, right, best for the job. In the story about King David that Miss Yapel just read, she said they were going to pick a new king. And this guy brought all 7 of his sons that they thought could be king. They were the bigger ones, they were the older ones, they were the stronger ones, they were the good leaders of people ones. And every one of them went by and the guy that was picking the king said, nope, not that one. Nope, not that one. And he says, you must have another son that we're missing. And he says, sure, I've got one more son, but he's kind of young and he's out with the sheep because he's so small but I'll get him, I guess, if you think nobody would pick him, but you can certainly take a look. And when he came by, God whispered in the ear of the picker, he said, that's my guy. Right? He picked the littlest, the youngest, the least likely to become the king. That's who got picked. Does that seem to make sense?
Yeah.
Well, most people would say no. Doesn't make. Why would you pick a guy that's too young, not qualified, doesn't seem capable? But God looked at him, and you know what? God loved him. All of the things that we see, all of the things that we think matter the most, God looks at us at our heart, and he says, I love you, and I have an important job for you. No matter what other people think, in my eyes, you are exactly what I need. And God says that about each of you. I love you, and you're important, And you are exactly the person I need to share my story of love with the world. Did you know that you were that important to God? You are. That's a pretty holy thing that God has given you to do. And so whenever anybody tries to make you feel a little bit less than you are, you can remember that when God sees you, doesn't matter what anybody thinks, because in God's eyes, you are kings and queens and monarchs, and you have a holy, special thing to do. That's awesome. Let's say a prayer, okay? Dear God, thank you for looking at my heart. Help my life to share your love. Amen. Thanks for coming up.